I'm not just like imagining this. Everything she's saying sounds exactly like me. In my head. Hey everyone, we're going to be talking about getting help online and online support groups and all that stuff, but first let me explain what you just saw there. So the major internet service providing companies here in the United States, they have been lobbying for years the FCC, which is the regulatory board here, to make it so that they can discriminate basically and decide who gets access to faster internet and who's going to have to pay if they want access to that internet. And so the battle for the net is happening today. You will see it across many websites, because this is something that everybody agrees on. We do not want to see. We want everyone to have access to the internet. That's also why I'm talking about this topic tonight. So what you need to do is very simple. I will link down below. Go to the website and they will urge you to contact the FCC and contact your congresspeople to demand that this not be put through, to demand that the internet stays open and accessible to everybody. And I hope you'll get on board with that. It's something I think we all can believe in here. If you're watching me here, you understand the importance of having access to the internet and having access to information. So with that in mind, tonight I'm going to be talking about internet and how that relates to our mental health with things like support groups and access to information. Alright, so the first thing I want to start off with is my own experience. So years and years ago, I forget the year, I actually sat down and tried to figure this out once. I think it was like 2006, 2008, around that time. I started to realize maybe I have borderline personality disorder, and I think it's because I was trying to find information on narcissistic personality disorder, and reading through information about that online, they started talking about borderline personality disorder. I was like, wait a minute, this kind of sounds like me. So that was life-changing for me, because it gave me the start to going on this whole long period of working on my own mental health, which still continues through to today. I would say my mental health is pretty damn good right now, but there's still things that I work on. Everybody has stuff that they can work on. So I wouldn't have started down this path, though, if I didn't have the internet to look things up on. If I didn't have resources out there. You know, back then it was mostly websites that I was checking into. Social media wasn't quite what it is today. And so my best access to mental health information was to go onto websites and read, and obviously websites are not always the best source of information, but they're a good starting point. They give you some terminology and they get you to start to understand things that might be going on inside your mind. Now for me, I happened to go on YouTube and I found a video of a woman talking about borderline personality disorder, and if you know anything about personality disorders, it's very hard to see it in yourself because you've lived that way for most of your life, so you don't really see why you're different than anybody else. It doesn't really make sense to you. But once I heard this woman speaking about it on YouTube, that was the change for me. That was like the key that unlocked the door to be like, oh wow, this is a real possibility. I'm not just like imagining this. Everything she's saying sounds exactly like me. Having access to that video changed my life because it got me in the right direction. And as I continue here, I'm going to talk about some other ways that the internet has helped me. So that was a very long time ago that was going on, and it was a gradual learning process, and the internet helped me because every time I had a question, I could go onto Google or Yahoo or whatever the heck I was using at the time, and I could find an article. I could go to Wikipedia. These are resources that are invaluable to us. You know, if I wanted to look up a study, it's not something that I was doing back then, but that's something I do now. I can go to pubmed.gov here in the US and get research right there. It's right in front of me. Stuff that was harder to get access to before the internet. You know, we are seeing a lot of progress in this field of mental health, I feel, because a lot more people are talking to each other, and we're discussing and we're sharing our experiences, and sharing our experiences helps us to destigmatize. So more recently, 2015, the end of 2015, my ex was breaking up with me, and I was having a really difficult time handling it. I was in therapy at the time, but I was not able to really continue on with therapy for a number of different reasons. So my therapist gave me the clue, like, okay, you're probably going through trauma, so this has something to do with trauma. So I used the internet because it's such a great resource, and I started looking up videos about trauma, looking into books about trauma, and just getting my hands on everything that I could about trauma and PTSD. And I figured out, okay, she's right, like, this is what's going on. And it pointed me in the right direction to find the books that would be good quality books. You know, I was able to read reviews and things, and just getting a sense of how people went through this, from reading people's experiences, talking about it on social media, reading those books that I mentioned, reading the research. Like, all of this helped me way better than even I think a therapist could have, because yes, a therapist can guide you and a therapist can kind of walk you through things, but they can only do that as many appointments as you have with them. And so I needed more, and I needed it to happen faster, and having the internet and having access to these things helped me to do that. One thing that I did do, and we're going to talk about this because I think this is a big help for people, is I went into a support group. Specifically, I went to MYPTSD, is the name of the support group. I forget if it's a .net or a .com, but it's MYPTSD. I'll link it down below. And they have a forum there, and that was very helpful. And then some other things that have helped me, I've gone to psych forums to hear about other people's experiences, even researching for these videos that I do here, because, you know, reading the DSM is not going to help me really grasp everything about a disorder. So being able to relate to other people here, I've been going to forums and reading people's experiences there. I've gotten relationship advice from some forums. There's a good forum I used to go to, Out of the Fog is another one. And let's talk about these forums and these support groups. I did start my own support group on Facebook, and I was a member of a number of support groups on Facebook. So this is not like new territory to me. I know what support groups are like, and I want to talk about them and give you some maybe words of caution, what to look for, what not to do. So I think a support group can be helpful even if you just join and don't say anything at all. I've learned so much from not saying anything and just reading about other people's experiences and observing and reflecting for myself without ever participating in the conversation. That's not even necessary to gain something from a support group. If you are at a stage where it feels comfortable for you, you can share your story, and it can be very validating to hear people say, like, we understand, we get it. There's a danger to that, though, in that if you are in a group with people who are not so understanding, who are not able to listen and hear your story, it could be traumatizing, but even if it's not traumatizing, it could shake you up to bare your soul, bare your vulnerabilities, and have people dismiss them and treat you like maybe you're doing something wrong. So be aware of that. You know, even every group has its own feel, and most of these groups are not run by professionals. You know, I'm not a professional, and I run a support group, and I disclose that. Not everybody discloses that. Not everybody makes it clear, like, I'm not a professional. Not everybody lays the ground rules of what the support group is about. So you'll want to make sure that you know what the feel of the group is like before you start participating. You want to make sure you know what the rules are. You follow those rules. If you can't follow those rules, maybe it's not the right support group for you. There are so many support groups online, it's ridiculous. You don't have to use Facebook groups. I know those are popular right now. There are forums. There are other places, websites that you can find them. So just look around, search, use Google, use word of mouth. If you're in a group that you don't like, maybe see if there's references to other groups in that group, and like, find it. It's okay to leave the group. You're not stuck to one group because you found it. But be aware that there's some people who are in these groups who are not going to be supportive because they're still healing themselves and there's a lot of pain for them, and they may be looking for a place to put that pain, and they may place it on you. So it is what it is. It's not a substitute for therapy. A support group is not a substitute for therapy. There is some online places where you can get something that's like therapy, but it's not actually therapy. It's peer support, like real-time chat. I'll link to some of those if I can find them below. I've used them like once or twice before. It wasn't really my thing, but I can see how it could be very helpful for other people. I think it's just kind of important to know that a support group is only as good as the person running it, and every person running it's going to have different value system of what's important to them and what's not important to them. You know, a support group is not there to save you. If you go to a support group thinking, like, if you're in a suicidal mood and you're looking for some external place like a support group to pick you up off the floor and make it better, that's not the right resource for you. And they're not going to be able to help you with that. So understand that. Understand that there's different places to go. A therapist is probably more appropriate for that, or an emergency hotline if that's the case. But I do think that support groups are very, very helpful. I've found them very helpful personally going through some really difficult times in my life, and I do recommend them. I just recommend some caution in using them and to not set the expectation too high. They're going to do something special and amazing for you that they really can't do. We're all humans. So that said, I just want to go over what to look for when you're reading information online, because that can get a little overwhelming because there's so much information, and then we'll wrap things up. Okay, sorry to be looking down on you. It's just in this location, if I raise up, then I get a shadow. So that's just what it is. When it comes to getting information online, especially about psychology, we need to be very cautious because there's a lot of information that people just say. People make shit up. Quite clearly, they just make it up, and then people believe it because it sounds true, and then this whole effect comes into play where we believe what our friends say, and so it becomes more solidified as true, even though there's not any good backings in science. There's no research to show that it's true, or if there is research, usually people point to 1 or 2 studies and they haven't really looked at a meta-analysis, for example, to verify that those studies are really showing a consistent trend that actually would verify that this is what's going on when we're talking about whatever it is we're talking about when it comes to mental health and psychology. So be aware that there's a lot of people, even if they have the therapist designation, even if they're a licensed professional, they can still get it wrong. They can still get sucked into this world of theory and guesswork. And, you know, I do that a lot here on this channel. A lot of times I will kind of say, well, this is the theory, this is what I kind of think, but I always make that clear, like, this is what I think, and I try to always make it clear that, you know, this is not always verified by science, and I always urge people to go to the actual research. If you're interested in this stuff, you know, read a book, read something by these people, but by whoever on the internet, but if you want to make sure that it's real, if you want to make sure that it's verified, then go to their sources and read the studies. If you don't want to read the whole study, go down to the conclusion of the study. Read multiple studies, don't just settle on one study, and that will give you a good idea of what's going on when it comes to mental health and the different topics that we talk about: mental illness, different disorders, the causes for different disorders and whatnot, and be understanding that there are some things that we just don't have answers for. We don't necessarily know, and it's kind of like anybody's best guess. And it's fine that sometimes we don't have answers and we kind of fill in the blanks and we try to find answers, but we need to be aware that that's what we're doing, and we have to be aware that we could be wrong, and what we've been thinking for years and years and years can be wrong. You know, we thought homosexuality was a mental disorder for decades before finally declassifying it and taking it out, because we got science that told us that it's not a mental disorder, that it's a normal variance in our genetic gene pool. So just be aware of the information that you're consuming and be aware that it could be false. And I'm not saying that it's fake news or anything. If you want to know if it's fake news or whatever the hell you want to call it, go to the sources. That's my recommendation to you. So before you go, if you like mental health videos, hit subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications every time I do a video. I have a Patreon page if you want to support me. Go check that out. And I'm working on something. Hopefully it'll be done tomorrow or the next day, like a recording to kind of soothe you in times when you're feeling a little stressed out. So maybe that will be helpful for you. So look for that over on Patreon coming soon. I'll let you know. And please go to Battle for the Net, and they have a simple form you can fill out there. Contact the FCC and contact Congress and let them know that you stand for internet, an open internet that everybody can access without speed lanes and without barriers to getting access to the information that we all know and love, like this channel here and like your other YouTube channels that you visit.